How's everybody doing for my Wednesday live stream? Today's live stream is going to be broken into two parts. The first part, I'm going to be answering a question that is the number one question that people ask me, mainly during my live streams. And then the second part will be regular Q&A on Wednesday. We can talk about anything. We can ask questions and all that. So if everybody can just hold your questions till the second half, because I'm going to be talking about some stuff. We'll get around to it. Hey, Tim, what's going on? See some people on Instagram. Of course, Casey's over there on Twitch. Hopefully, people are getting their Twitch notifications. Don't see anybody on YouTube yet. Might wait a couple seconds just for people to get going, because I've been having some issues with the notifications sometimes. It doesn't make any sense. But before I start my rant, not really a rant, but what I was going to talk about, I'll just talk about a couple other things that's going on. My YouTube channel is growing. I've gotten something like 12,000 new subscribers in the last week or so, which is amazing. Mostly from one video, but all my newer videos are doing better now, which is really great. And I'd just like to thank everybody for that. It's been amazing. I'm working on a new video that's an answer to the video I made about why today's music is starting to sound all the same. And in that video, at the end of it, I said, if you want to learn how to be unique and break out of the box and not sound like other people, I've got some techniques I can show you. And a lot of people responded, a lot. So I'm working on a video for that, and I'm going to show a couple clips from that in the second half of today's stream. That video hopefully will be done in a few days. As usual, I went a little overboard with it, and it's probably going to be too long, but there'll be a lot of information in there if you're interested. So just, check back in a few days, but I will be showing some streams or some clips from that today. I see Eric over on YouTube and a bunch of people on Instagram. So I'm going to jump into this now. And hopefully some people will jump on YouTube here in a minute. And of course, as usual, this live stream will be on my YouTube channel as soon as I'm done. So if you miss any of this, you can always go back to my YouTube channel and look under the live section and see the full video. So here's what I want to talk about today. The number one question that I get asked all the time is, how do I get work as a producer? Or how do I get work as a mixer? Or an engineer, anything like that. And it's kind of a big question, and the answer is kind of complicated. So I'm going to try to answer it as best as I can. I would first say that I don't know if I could exactly tell you how you're going to get work, but I can tell you how I did it. And I can also tell you the things that I did that I think helped me have a career. So this is all based on my personal experience. Most of my career has been kind of by myself. I've never worked in another studio as far as I can, an employee. I've worked at other studios when people paid me to mix, but it's not like I worked at another studio. So there's going to be three parts to this answer. How do I get work as a producer, mixer, or engineer? And the first part is, first things first, prepare. Second part is getting the work. And the third part is keeping the work. So let's talk about the first part first. Before you try to go get work, there's a few things you need to understand. Most importantly is that this is a marathon, not a sprint. It's a marathon, and it's going to take a long time. And there's going to be times when you're making some progress, and then there's going to be times where it's just kind of dragging on, and you're going to get despondent and depressed, and you just got to realize this is going to take some time. I worked doing recording sessions and all that stuff for 10 years before I ever made a profit. Probably, no, more than 10 years before I actually started making enough money to pay back the investment I'd made in my gear. And then there were times, even after I had hit records, where making a lot of money and we're doing great, and then there's like, oh man, nothing's going on for months at a time. This is how it is. So you got to stretch that out. The other thing that's really, really, really important is you need to live cheaply. I'm telling you, do not get into debt. This is like one of the most important things. Live cheaply. Don't get a new car. Buy a used car, even if it's just a year old. You don't need it. The best thing you could do is buy a clunker, which is I've always done. All my cars, even when I was working on Hit Records, I always drove beat up cars. And if I was embarrassed by my car and I was going to a music industry event, I would just park 2 blocks away and walk there so nobody would see my car. But the reason I did that is because, separate from having a music career, buying a new car for anybody financially is a stupid idea. It's a bad idea, the way the loans work, unless you got the money and you're paying cash, in which case I'd say still buy a used car, because the value of a car drops so much in the first year. It used to be better buying a year-old car. But the other thing that's really important is look at all your expenses and get rid of anything you don't absolutely need. If you got this extra subscription on your cable channels or whatever, and you can knock some of that off, and you end up saving $100, $200, $300 a month, eat out less and all that, you got to consider that's cumulative. That extra money you're paying each month might be the difference between you having to work another day or two or so at a job that you have, a regular job, instead of working on projects for people or developing clients, or just back at your home studio developing your skills. And over the course of a year, you're talking about weeks worth of time that you're going to be at a job where you can't do anything, as opposed to being home. So get rid of every expense that you possibly can. And it's also the same even when you start having success. It's not an easy business, and it's going to be up and down. So the main thing is live as cheaply as possible. The other thing, as far as expenses are concerned, and some people are going to like this, but I'm going to say it. Do not get caught up in monthly subscriptions for software unless you can absolutely avoid it. I know some people want to use Pro Tools, so they have to get the subscription. Luckily, I've been around since the beginning, and I'm grandfathered in. I still got to pay per year, but it's far less than the monthly thing. If you're able, depending on your clients, maybe you can work in Logic or some other platform. But if you got to pay the Pro Tools subscription, go ahead. But the main thing is, I don't do any monthly subscriptions on plugins. Absolutely don't. Because I just think, to be honest with you, I'm not going to mention any names, but some of these companies that you're paying monthly subscriptions for, I've tried out all the plugins. They would give me a chance to use them for free for a while, just to try them out and put them in videos, and I did, and I got to say, yeah, they're all right. But you can probably do almost everything you need to do with the built-in plugins on your DAW. Nobody has to know. It may not be that cool, but you can actually do a lot of that without spending the money on it. I can see maybe some reverb plugins and a couple other things, but and if you need a plugin, buy it. Do not do a subscription. But even if you're buying plugins, buy as few as possible, because here's my experience. I've been doing this a long time. If you're going to stick with this a long time, you're going to find yourself upgrading over and over through the years your computer and your operating system. I've got, 7 Macintoshes back there, and I'm always having to update my operating system and then, update my DAW, which means then I got to go update the plugins. And then sometimes the new plugins are designed differently and sound different, and you're like, oh, and you can't open up your new sessions on all that. I'm using more stock than I've ever done. I'm trying to not use that stuff. So my advice is, don't do subscriptions unless you absolutely have to, and only buy the plugins you absolutely need. Now, this brings up an issue with some mixers, and I've got some friends that are mixers, and they have this idea, the way they do business is they try to buy every plugin that their potential customers will have. So when they get a session, they can open it up. And I'm like, man, you know how much money that is? I mean, I know guys that do that, and they're like, it's not that much money. It's like, man, it adds up. I just tell, and then maybe it's my clients, it might be different for different people. I just tell people, freeze all your tracks or give me stems. Like if you've done something to your DAW and, if they've done some work in their session, they got some software instruments and all that, print it. Print the reverb. Send me the stems. There's no reason for you to be buying all the plugins that everybody else has. It's going to be a small fortune. That's my advice. I think the main point I'm trying to make is that software is not an investment. An investment is something that lasts for a while and can either increase in value or hold its value. Software, I don't care if they're plugins, those are not investment. Here's an investment. This is an investment. This is a Neumann TLM 103. It's like not a super expensive mic, but it's like, $1,000. 25 years old. 25 years old. And I still use it to this day. And all I've done is I make sure to put it in the box and not drop it. This is an investment. Here's another investment. My Bill Lawrence guitar. This thing's probably this is 35 years old. 35 years. And it does need a fret job. And I replaced this pickup. I had Mullinex pickups do a custom pickup for me. But besides that, 35 years, that's still working. What else is an investment? I've got gear here. The speakers, I've got good speakers here. Those are investments. Your software is not an investment. So if you're going to put money into things, try to put them into like a good controller. Hey, let's go to the overhead here real quick. This right here, investment. This is a very high-end studio control room monitor, way more expensive than most people can afford. I lucked out on a good deal for this thing, but this is an investment, and I've had it, I think, over 10 years. I don't think anybody's using a computer, at top level that's 10 years old. Those are investments. The other thing you can do to prepare for a career, and this is eventually going to get around to how you get work as a producer and mixer. I'm just covering ground ahead of time. I'll get to how you get the work. Before you start doing that, or as you're trying to get the work, try to work under some pros. Find some people who are great producers and mixers and see if you can get in their studio. Even if you got to take out the trash, do some vacuuming, make them peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, do whatever you can to work with people who are kicking butt. Make friends with them. Offer to help them. If you're going to be there, do something that's going to make their lives easier, and then you can watch them work. I never did that myself because actually, to be honest with you, I was too stupid back then to realize that. But I've never actually seen anybody mix a song in my life except one time. It was a guy named Ron Christopher who was working at the Old Tree Sound here in Atlanta. And I was down there helping the owner with some things, and the door was open. And I walked in the control room, and I stood behind him when he was mixing on an SSL for about 5 minutes before he looked at me and just said something like, you can close the door on your way out. And I didn't realize he meant that I needed to leave right then. And then he just sat there, and I realized, I think he wants me to leave. But in those 5 minutes, watching him work before he noticed me standing there, I don't know, I learned so much because I could see the way the compressors were hitting on the SSL and just some of the stuff he was doing. And it kind of just like made me rethink everything that I was doing. That was 5 minutes. So go work under some people, see if you can work at another studio. Even just go visit studios. Just ask for studio tours and just talk to them and see what their studio looks like and ask them about their gear. And who knows, maybe that leads to you being able to hang out. But that's one of the best things you can do to get into the business. The bottom line is you want to surround yourself with people who are already doing it. And the other thing, as you're building your career and looking for work, expand your skills and diversify. If you're a mixer, learn how to produce. If you're a producer, learn how to mix. Learn how to work in different genres. Go out and learn how to mic live instruments. Go learn how to mic a banjo. Go work at a live venue and do live sound for a while, which you'll probably hate. I hated it, but you'll learn a lot. I would also suggest anybody to learn how to play an instrument. At least learn how to bang around on the keyboard a little bit and play major and minor chords and a few other things. But if you can learn how to play a guitar or bass, even just at a mediocre level, it's going to put you so far ahead because it gives you the ability to just lay down some basic parts. So it's going to help you communicate with more advanced musicians, things like that. But diversify, because it's going to be harder and harder to specialize in this business if you're only doing one genre and one skill set. Now, I'm going to move on now to getting the work. How do you get the work? The first thing you got to do is learn how to self-promote. And don't be embarrassed by it, because you self-promoting is not going to be perceived by most people as like, he's just talking about himself. They'll just be like, he's motivated. He's determined. It's fine. It's all right. Even if you seem a little braggadocious, just go do it. But the best way to promote is to get other people to promote for you. The best way to do it is to get other people to do your promotion for you. And the way to do that is find an artist or a band that is very active and they're good. They're out doing things and they are promoting themselves, and offer to do some songs for free for them. And just tell them that they can't tell anybody else that you're working for free. But here's what's going to happen. if you do a good job, which you need to make sure you do the absolute best that you can, they're going to go play that stuff for somebody. And if you've also got a great relationship and you've gone the extra mile and done this extra stuff and all that, they'll talk about you. And that is the key to how I built my business. And this is something I've talked about on my live streams before, but I'm going to bring it up again. I did a lot of work with a rapper named Bone Crusher. I met Bone in the late 90s, and we'd done this project. And when it ended, I just really liked him. I thought he was cool. So I hit him up on the phone and took him out to Taco Bell and bought him a couple of burritos and said, hey, let's do some songs together. And that turned into a lot of songs. I almost regretted doing it. I kind of just did it because I thought he was cool. But then it was like, oh, wow, everything we did, even little demos, he'd go play for everybody. So I just made sure that before I gave him a demo on a cassette, it was on cassettes back then and later CDs, that I just killed it, made it as good as possible. And he would take that stuff and play it for everybody in Atlanta. Sometimes he'd like talk his way into the local radio station late at night and they'd play it late at night. But Bone did so much advertising for me. And then I was like, oh, that's an interesting strategy. So I started making this, I had this kind of rule that at any one moment, I always had one project that was a pet project that I picked out that I was going to do for that purpose, to get my work out there and heard, and also sometimes to challenge myself. Maybe they were doing something that was a little more country or a little more rock, but it always had to be somebody, and this is the key thing, it has to be somebody who's going out and actually doing something. Doesn't matter how good they are if they're just sitting in their house. You need to find people who are out gigging, self-promoting, and doing things. So that was a big part of how I built my business, and they did my advertisement for me. And another way you can do that if you don't know people like that is go out and go to where there are live performances. Go to open mics, go to see local bands, and find people that are, doing original music, of course, and listen to them and go talk to them and make friends with them. And you don't know where that's going to lead. That's one of the best things you can do. Like, just go out to the clubs and meet artists and expand your I hate to say network because people always say, oh, we're going to network. I don't network. I don't think of it as networking. I think of it as making a lot of friends, building relationships. And that's how you should do it too. Go to the networking events, but don't think about networking. Oh, I'm going to hand out my business card and then they're going to call me up. No, make friends with people and be of value to them. Help them out or just make friends, and that'll lead to something. The other thing that's really important about getting work, and this kind of ties into what I said about expanding your skills and diversifying, is differentiate. If you want to get work, you got to ask yourself, what makes you different? How are you different? Are you doing the same quality work as other people out there, or is it better? Do you have a different angle, or are you able to not only produce, but, play some instruments? Or maybe you can work across different genres, which is something I've always done. That's how I differentiated myself, that I could do rap, country, jazz, bluegrass, heavy metal, rock, whatever. Because I played in top 40 bands for years, played guitar touring, and I knew how to play all these top 40 songs. And that taught me how to do that stuff. I didn't realize that's what I was doing at the time. I just wanted to get out of the house and go in a van and meet chicks and play gigs and stuff like that. But I did learn a lot along the way. So make sure that you find a way to differentiate yourself. And sometimes that differentiation isn't just about your skills. It's about you as a human being, as a person. And that kind of ties into the other thing, is that you need to make sure that you are always answering your phone calls, direct messages, emails. Be prompt, be professional. That's another way to differentiate yourself, being on top of things, being ahead of everybody. You need to be ahead of everybody where the technology is concerned, prepping for sessions, music industry news, whatever. You need to be ahead of everybody so that when you meet them, you can talk about things and they'll be like, what? And then suddenly you become like the guy who knows things. That's so valuable to be able to just inform people of things in a session. You just turn, hey, did you know, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, whoa. And I tell you, that kind of stuff can make a difference. Like, oh, that guy's together. Another way to differentiate yourself. Let's see. Oh, here's another good one. How to get the work. Once you get going, number one rule, get the files. Get the files. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people and they're not totally sure if they're going to hire me because I'm a little bit more expensive. and I'm usually pretty booked. Sometimes this is a little sneaky, but sometimes I'll tell people before I quote them a price, I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, can I see what it looks like? And I get them to send me the session before I quote the price. Because once I get the files, even if they say no, I'm like, I don't know. I think I could do a good job. There's been a couple times I just went ahead and mixed it anyway. Just slaughtered it. Just absolutely slaughtered it. And I send them like, maybe I cut off the last 30 seconds or something. Like, yeah, well, I did it anyway. What do you think of this? And they're like, oh. Damn. So get the files. Number one thing. Once you get the files, man, it's up to you. If you're willing to put the energy in, you can like just do the work anyway. And maybe in the end, they say, nah, never mind, we found somebody else, because sometimes people are just stupid. Even if you have a great mix, they might hire their buddy who's just got better weed. I don't know. But in the process, you'll learn. Every time you do a session, every time you do a mix, you're going to learn something. And the other thing, if you're starting out, take advantage of every platform out there. There's all these little mixing websites where people can go and hire a mixer, and there's not much money in it, but if you hit all of them, it could, who knows what it could lead to, because it only takes one artist to make all the difference, just the right artist, and you never know where you're going to meet them. Do one artist, and they happen to know a lot of people, so in the beginning, take advantage of every opportunity you can. And of course, you got to be active on social media. And now we're going to move on to keeping the work. Sorry, I got to take a breath and drink some water. I have a way of talking a lot. I don't know if y'all notice that I can talk. Once I get going, I just talk. And I'm going to get around to questions and stuff here in a minute once I'm done with this. Anyway. Okay. Keeping the work. Once you get the work, how do you keep the work? Make yourself indispensable. It's kind of, in a way, ties into differentiating yourself. Be indispensable. Be so good and so together and so on top of it that they're just like, oh, wow. And I'll give you a great example. I just got a mix tweak. I thought I was done with a mix for a particular artist, and they wanted to edit the intro, and they did a rough, edit with an MP3, and I could hear it, but I could hear their edit was so bad that their intention could have been this one thing or another, because where they edited it, there was a guitar note changing in the background, and I wasn't sure if they're wanting it to resolve to this other note or whatever, so I actually sent them 2 different versions of that edit. They didn't ask for it, but I thought it could be this or this. I did the extra work, and I sent them, mix 3A, mix 3B, and said, which one do you like better? And that's another thing with mixing sometimes, too. If I am working on a mix, and I'm like, oh, man, I don't know, I put this clipper on here, or I got this limit, and I'm going to try this. Send them both versions and say, hey, mix A, mix B. What do you like better? Also, making some suggestions sometimes, but in every way, making sure that, when you deliver the mixes, for instance, give them a vocal up mix. Most people don't ask for it, but I'd do it anyway. I'd always send people instrumentals and acapellas, whether they ask for it or not. And just so they're like, oh, yeah. And then later on, when they want to license it and you already gave them the instrumental, they're like, oh, damn. That's another way of being indispensable, just being on top of things. And I also said, I already said return phone calls, DMs, and email properly. That's a way to keep the work. Another thing is you got to realize that your job as a mixer, and this is how you keep the work, your job as a mixer isn't just mixing, it's problem solving. Being a mixer is a big part about problem solving. Like, you're going to get work and there's going to be technical issues. Sometimes it's editing. Sometimes you got to do a little extra work they didn't necessarily ask for, because sometimes I'll nudge instruments around because there's something wrong with the phase or something else. I don't always tell them, I just do it. But keep in mind, a mixer is a problem solver. And once you really think about that a lot, it's going to change kind of how you do your work, and also how you communicate with the clients, and the kind of questions you ask them, and how you lead them through the process. Also, you need to be the best at your work. You need to be the best at your work, and your work needs to be bulletproof. You can't take any shortcuts. Whether you're a producer, a mixer, or engineer, you can't go, nobody will notice it. Trust me, people will notice, or they'll sense that something's wrong. Your work has to be bulletproof, because the only thing that matters is what comes out of the speakers. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is what comes out of the speakers. So be bulletproof on your work. And then finally, 2 more things. And also be a good human. Be a good person. Don't be a a-hole like I've been sometimes. Be a good person. Be kind. Also look when people are being, sometimes your clients are being kind of a pain in the butt or they're freaking out and all that. You got to put yourself in their shoes. They're going through their own stresses and they're sometimes paranoid about mixers and producers because they might not understand what you're doing, so they might feel a little paranoid or suspicious or whatever. Just be kind and try to show some empathy and compassion before you fly off the handle and start yelling at them. Which, yeah. Anyway, and then finally, I'm going to repeat this again. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So it's a long road. You just got to stick to it. All right, so that's my answer to the questions that's my answer to the question that gets asked more often than any other. Now, before I move on to Q&A, I can see a lot of car talk. Wait.
Yeah, there actually has been a bit of car talk in here because it all started with you talking about not driving a new car, not buying a new car. Yeah,
there's a whole conversation on YouTube. I've been trying not to look at it because I'm trying to focus on my notes here. I'm going to go on to questions. Do we have questions here?
Let's see. Do you edit real?
Oh, no, not. I don't want to do them yet.
Oh, gotcha.
I just need to drink some water. So I'm going to run a little like an announcement thing here. I'm going to take a sip of water and then I'll be back for Q&A. So just give me a couple minutes here. I love doing these live streams and answering your questions. I know sometimes I can't get into too much detail because I'm trying to get to everybody else's questions. But if you go to my YouTube channel, you'll find videos about recording, mixing, production, as well as my past live streams. If you still want more in-depth knowledge, I do one-on-one private coaching and tutoring online to help you record and mix your songs. But we can also talk about the music business, your live stream setup, your studio setup, filming, editing, whatever. When we're talking, the time is yours. We're going to focus on what you need. I also occasionally record on people's songs live online while they watch so we can interact like we're in the studio together. If you're interested in doing any of this on an ongoing, regular basis, you can join my Patreon and sign up for private consultations. However, if you just want some help here and there when you need it, you can reach out to us at contactbillyhume@gmail.com and we'll take care of you. Now, back to our regular programming. All right, so I know I said I'd get to Q&A, but I just realized I was reminded during that I completely missed something when I was answering this question. And in the first part of it, I was talking about things you need to do to prepare to have a music career. And I was actually supposed to have Crystal talk about some financial stuff, and I blew right past it. She should have thrown something at me, but I really want her to say what she was going to say because she's actually the brains behind this operation. So let's hand it over to Kit. Kit's going to talk about some things that you guys need to think about as you're preparing to have a career.
Well, specifically financial stuff. Because, one of the things that Billy said was keep your expenses low. And that is one of the first things that you can do to help make sure that you've got some longevity in this. And even if you get a big check-in, don't, still live frugally. And one of the parts of this is you need to have an emergency fund. I'm talking to every single one of you that is looking to make your income from music or any creative career. Have an emergency fund. If possible, put an automatic draft to feed into that emergency fund every month. You want the fund to be something that can be liquid cash if you need it. A money market account is a good choice because it'll earn a little more, or a high yield savings account. Either one is going to earn a little more interest than if you just have it in your bank savings account. So make sure that every single month you put something in there. You're going to need that emergency fund both for unexpected critical expenses, if you have a car issue or a health issue or who knows what, but also to help sustain you on months that are leaner months. You get a month, you haven't had a big job in, you might need to make your rent or your mortgage payment, and you might need to pull a little of that from your emergency fund. Obviously, keep your debt to a minimum. And I'm going to say this is obvious, but I say it because of the number of people that we've known that kind of let this slip by them. Keep up with your payments. If you have a car loan, if you have a credit card, if you have anything like that, don't let that slip by you. Pay your bills on time. Now, getting into tax stuff. Pay your taxes. File your taxes. I don't know exactly how this works for some of our international listeners, but here in the U.S., you need to make sure that you're reporting your income, whether you're as self-employed or whether you set up a business for your music stuff. You need to file your taxes. You need to pay your taxes. If you've missed years in the past, file it late and set up a payment plan if you owe any money. So work with a good accountant to help you with this. Go ahead and find one, and don't just hand it off and let them do it. Educate yourself as you go through. Ask your accountant questions. Learn how this works.
Make sure that they understand the difference between being self-employed and W-2, and then when you become self-employed, you're paying taxes.
Yeah, one thing about paying your taxes, Billy reminded me, is that, if you've got a job, and again, I'm speaking to our U.S. people, and you get a W-2 from your job because you get paid by your employer, that's a lot easier to file your taxes. It's pretty simple. If you are working as a self-employed individual or you create your own business, your taxes are going to get a lot more complicated. And if you want to survive in this creative career and work for yourself, you're going to have to get comfortable with that. That's one of the reasons why I say get an accountant to help you.
Save your receipts.
Yes. So
all your receipts.
Part of that, whether you're self-employed or whether you create your own business, you need to track all of your income. Every deposit that you make a note of exactly where and who it came from and what it was for. You're going to need that information. Also, keep track of all your business-related expenses. So you need to think about, it's not just stuff like, you buy yourself an instrument or an amp or a piece of outboard gear or a microphone. Those are all very important. But it's also things like all your cables, monthly expenses you might have. If you have a critical subscription, like Pro Tools or whatever it might be, that is a deductible expense for your business. There's all kinds of other stuff too. Obviously, instrument supplies, strings, if you have to get your instrument repaired or anything else repaired, those service bills. Even, and this is where you talk to your accountant, things like your internet bill, your phone bill, a new computer. These are potentially business expenses as long as they're not more used for personal use.
Casey mentions insurance. Did you mention insurance yet?
Not yet. I was about to get to
sorry.
Keep a list of your assets. So not only do you need to keep track of your expenses, as you add to your assets, you need to keep a list of them. And I'm talking all the aforementioned equipment, instruments, amps, whatever. Also things like cables, connectors, converters, HDMI, adapters, whatever. All this stuff, keep track of your list. For the bigger stuff, write the serial number down. And it's also useful if you write down the date and the amount of purchase. Some of this is for your own records. Just believe me, after years and years of this, it's interesting to be able to look back and see when you acquired something and how much you paid for it. But some of it's also for taxes. And let's hope you never need it, but it's critical if you ever have to make an insurance claim. Which brings me to insurance. Make sure you're insured. There's a lot of ways to go about doing it. And I'm talking specifically on, first of all, with property insurance. So insuring all of your gear, insuring all of your assets. You can do it through homeowners insurance. You can do it if you're incorporated. You can do it with a business insurance plan. There are also companies that cater to people in the music industry. So you can get a separate insurance plan that covers for you what you need to do. Also, the American Federation of Musicians and probably other organizations in other countries have low-cost plans specifically for their members. So that's another good thing to look into. Some of them even can cover other types of insurance. Like if you're having trouble in the States getting some health insurance, sometimes some of these labor unions related to the music industry might have programs to help with that. The last thing I wanted to say is don't slack off on this stuff. Keep up with it. And don't give up. If you dream of music or any creative career being your career, you have to treat it like that from the beginning. This is your business. So you need to treat it like that. Even if you're having fun, remember that you have to keep your stuff together. I think that's pretty much it. So I don't know.
Oh, that was great. It was more than I expected. Yeah, and here's the thing about the whole tax thing. She's like, keep up with your taxes. As I was, coming up and had a home studio and I was starting to get work and I was painting houses, I went for years and didn't pay my income tax. Kind of forgot about it. And then,
why did I have this piece of information in here?
Yeah, well, and then when I started getting it together is when we started I started slowly getting it together beforehand, and then Crystal came on board, and boy, she had some catching up to do, so I had to make payments and catch up on all that, and it was more of a pain in the ass. It was financially kind of bad, but more of just a pain in the ass. But I needed to do it because later on, when I wanted to buy another house, to move, because I needed to move, I needed to be able to prove my income and all that. So thank God we started getting all that together. So, okay, I think I'm ready to move on to Q&A. If there's any questions out there, somebody said best budget overhead. This is on Instagram. LA Field said, what are the best budget overheads? You're thinking about NT5s. I'm not sure what those are. I don't know what budget would mean exactly. I would say some good small diaphragm condensers. I've got some Josephsons, but I think they're a little pricey. I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't keep up with every mic that's out there. But if possible, get some good small diaphragm condensers, possibly matched if you could. I actually had some PV small diaphragm. I know PV mics. I had these PV small diaphragm condensers for years, and I used them for overheads on drums, and I hadn't pulled them out in a long time. Probably if I pulled them out, I might be like, but I used them on records that got released and all that for years because that's all I had, So, I don't know. There's a certain point with the mics is like, as long as they sound pretty decent, I'm going to find a way to make them work, Let's see.
There was also from Jackie Lantern, do you edit reel-to-reel tapes through Pro Tools?
Wow, I didn't think about that. I guess you could. I don't really do much editing on reel-to-reel tapes anymore. I have in some videos. I've got my tapes here and my reels here and all that. It's an interesting question. I did transfer a bunch of analog stuff into my DAW in the last few months, older songs that I'd never finished, and I'm going to go back and finish. And I guess I'm editing them in there. I don't know, like if you wanted to be a purist about it, transferring it into the DAW and editing it and putting it back on tape, then these extra generations, I would just edit it on tape because I've done it before and I, used to it. Oh, thanks so much, Tris. Awesome. Really, really appreciate that. That's so good. Somebody just gave me a tip. Oh my God, that's so good. Hold on. Let me say thanks. I appreciate that. Let's see. I noticed a lot of stuff on YouTube. Let me see if I can go back.
I'm trying to go back here. Just almost random find one. Scenario says, you've just released a song. What are your next steps?
Who, me?
Yeah, that would be a question.
Well, you just released a song. What are the next steps? I think you should probably do some of that stuff beforehand. Now, I am not a promotion guy. There's other people out there. What I would do beforehand is I'd make, a music video and tons of shorts. And here's the thing I see on social media a lot is I would do multiple versions, shorts or reels of you singing the chorus or performing the chorus. And I would do multiple ones in different, just different views. Like maybe you're in the studio or maybe you're outside or whatever, and just keep releasing them because that seems to be a strategy I see work for a lot of people. If you've got the money, maybe, actually talk to some promotional people, but you would need to be planning this ahead of time. I think the thing with releasing a song is you got to figure out, does it somehow connect to something? Is there an event or can you tie it to it being licensed for a show or something? Or I don't know. It's like I am not a promotion person. I'm actually a terrible promotion person. There are definitely people out there who are pros at it, but I really feel like that's a big mistake people make is they put out their song and then think about the promotion. You need to be working on the promotion and anything else that's going along with it, months beforehand. You should have gigs set up. The closest thing I can relate it to is my YouTube channel, right? On my YouTube channel, because I've actually made this mistake, I'll put some of my music in a video. And then everybody's like, what's that song? And I'm like, oh, I should have put it up on Spotify. And that's a whole other story. I was trying to upload one of my old albums on Spotify, and I'm having issues with TuneCore, which is...
Yeah, don't get into the rant.
I'm not going to get into the rant about TuneCore, because TuneCore, I hate TuneCore. Long story. But I should have thought about this ahead of time, so I'm trying to be careful about the songs I put in videos. Of course, I'm working on a video right now, and I've got a song in it but it's not done. But the point being is that I get a song in a video, and there's no place for people to go listen to it. So I need to kind of get my songs done before I put them in videos. But same thing with you. Don't put out your song without some other things going on with it. Try to set up interviews, get people hyped up, get people on blogs to talk about it, because what you want to have happen is as many little things as you've got, your reels, interviews, maybe an interview on a podcast, just whatever you can. They all need to happen at the same time. So you need to try to do that before you put your single out. That's the best advice I've got on that.
So Eric wonders, I think I saw a PRS Silver Sky in your wall. Is it one? I had the same in a dragon fruit color. I don't know.
Hold on. I think he's talking about... Yeah, I talked about this last week. This is, I think is what you're talking about. This is a Mira X. This is a PRS Mira X, and it was actually a trade with Danny Boone from Rehab. So he had gotten this from PRS, Paul Reed Smith Guitars, and he doesn't play guitar, and I had like a 2-channel Apogee interface for a laptop, and he wanted that, even though this is worth like 4 or 5 times as much. He's like, I trade you. So I gave him the interface, and he gave me this. But yeah, this is a Mira. So.
Also, I think I'll quickly answer this one as best I can. Let's see, where'd it go? Stefan asked, are we a member of BMI, ASCAP, or CSAC, and how much percentage income do we make in royalties in the business? So, Billy, we're with ASCAP. And as far as the percentage of income, not very much anymore. Years ago, it was, mailbox money was a good percentage of our income. Once streaming became the norm, that just basically...
That went all away.
That went away.
Yeah.
We still get some, and the MLC, which I've talked about on past live streams, has been a huge help in tracking down royalties for... interactive streaming. So, that's a whole other subject. At this time, royalties, it's not a lot. Sync licensing is probably a better bet.
Yeah, and to add something in, just make sure you're always doing your paperwork, sign your song splits, get all that stuff done, because in the long run, you never know what's going to happen. You could work on a song and kind of forget about it, and then years later, something happens with it, and if you don't have the paperwork, it's going to be impossible to get anybody to sign the song splits or track them down. I did see a question back up here. Somebody says, Jack over on Instagram, best way to save backup reel-to-reels. I mean, the best way to save them is keep them in the box, put them in a dry location, and not hot. Like reel-to-reels are going to last way better than your hard drives. I do have some reel-to-reels that were Ampex. Is it Ampex 456?
I believe that's right.
Yeah.
Oops.
And there was something about that formula that if they sat in the box too long and even a little moisture would get in there, they'd get gummy, and I've had to bake some of them so I could transfer them to digital. But I've got some other reels from a different manufacturer that are 30 or 40 years old. I kid you not, that I pulled out this last year and put them on my old reel-to-reels, which started right up, and I played them. Like they just were in the right place. I kept them in, wrapped up and in the box. With reel-to-reels, you just got to make sure just put them in the box and dry, cool place, and you're good. It's going to last longer than your hard drives.
DC1 said, hey, Billy, I really like hearing your discussions and videos on your work with the String Dusters and other acoustic groups. I'd love to see more videos of your techniques recording and mixing this music.
Okay. Hey, Kip, stick up that one video. It's got that funny fun thumbnail where it looks like I'm moving or something. It's called Recording Acoustic Instruments with Multiple Mics. Mm-hmm. It's actually a terrible thumbnail, although one of my kids likes it. But that actually has a lot about how I recorded banjo, dobro. I think I might have some fiddle in there, a bunch of stuff about stand-up bass. I will be swinging around to some of that stuff at some point. I've just got a strategy for my YouTube channel now. I do want to do more studio stuff. There's a lot of it already up there online, so I appreciate that. But yeah, there will be more coming. I've got a lot of plans.
Speaking of upcoming videos, somebody said, "What's the best way to make your sound less digital and more analog-y as a home producer?"
Okay, yeah. So I put up a video that's kind of blown up on YouTube called what was it? The real reason why today's music is starting to sound the same, and definitely people are like, well, you can listen to different stuff. It's like, I do. It's just a general statement. But I'm actually, at the end of that video, I said, if you want to, find out ways to be more unique and get out of the box and not sound like anybody else, I've got some techniques. Let me know if you want me to make a video about it. And the response was overwhelming. And so it's like, okay, I got to make this video. And then I've been working on it the last few days, and it was like, oh my God, there's so much. It's going to be a long video, but I've got a couple clips. So this is a little clip right here of my upcoming video, which should be out in the next few days. Let's play this. I'm going to start with a plastic trash can. And I'm going to record it with a Shure SM57, which is a pretty inexpensive mic and actually one of the most used mics in the history of recording music. I'm plugging it into the rear mic inputs on my Universal Audio Apollo Quad, and I'm just using the basic built-in mic pre's. There's not any mic modeling, nothing special, no external mic pre's, just plugging the mic into the interface. You could EQ and compress and do other kinds of processing as you're recording, but I'm trying to keep it simple. And I recorded hitting it at different volumes and positions. Okay, and in case I didn't explain that well, this part of the video is about creating samples. I'm going to play you another little part right here. Here's another part where I was creating samples. I'd heard about some people using water cooler jugs to record drums by placing that out in front of a drum kit and putting a microphone inside, but I figured what would happen if I put a microphone inside and hit on the jug? I switched back to the SM57 because the RE20 would not fit inside. I love doing this sort of stuff, but there are times I wonder, what in the hell am I doing with my life? Well, I'll figure that out later. Next, I recorded this old kitchen skillet. I put a small chain in the pan. More chain. I don't know if I really need something that sounds like this right now, but I've been wanting to sample it, and I got the mic set up, so I'm going to do it. Now, all right, and then another part of this video where I'm talking about creating a sample library. This is also in the video. Let's check this out. Oh, hold on. Let me go back to the beginning. Sorry. Normally, when I create a sample library, I leave all the samples raw. I don't do anything besides cutting them up and trimming them. And then I'll process them later on in whatever song I'm working on. But I figured I'd have some fun and mess around with these a little bit and export them with those effects on it. Yeah, so that's another clip from the video, and it's about that section was about creating sample libraries, and later on I go into creating loops and how to make your own unique one-of-a-kind sounds. So that'll be coming out in the next few days. Let's see. Is there any other?
Oh, there's all kinds of stuff.
All right, just throw something at me.
Well, just real quick, they were asking. So that is Ableton, and Alex said, "Watch out with Ableton. The built-in fade-ins on every clip can remove high-end from one-shot samples."
Yeah, a good point. Ooh, that's a good point right there. Yeah, I always got to go zoom in and check those fade-ins. I like the automatic fades on it. They mostly work, but. Yes, you got to go in and check those because it'll take away the transient. Great point.
Fragile says, question, I know the low end should be mono compatible. A lot of stereo synths have some phasing. At what frequency is this less of an issue?
I don't know. I never really thought about that. I mean, I do so much high pass filtering on sounds. A lot of times I'm just getting rid of that stuff because in a lot of my mixes, the only thing in the low end is like the kick drum and the bass or the 808, unless the synth is huge. There are some plugins out there. I think Ableton has in their utility plugin, I think, or one of them, you can actually tell it to be mono below a certain point. But I don't know. I'd probably actually want to look at the waveforms because a lot of it's about how big the waveform's at. But maybe... I don't know. I just throw a number out there, 70 hertz and down. I don't really know. But one thing, good point though. I'm constantly checking my mono compatibility. This controller I have right here, it's got a mono button on it. Can we look at the overhead real quick? Yeah, this is my studio controller. It's got a mono button on it. But even your DAW probably has some sort of mono button on your interface or something like that. You should constantly be checking that. So that's a great thing to look out for. But I wouldn't be able to tell you what specific frequency that is.
Eric, yes, Billy has won a Grammy. He won it with the group, the infamous String Dusters. I don't think you can, you can't see it. It's on a shelf above my head.
It's up there. It's a statue, whatever.
Yeah. Next question was, I also own an MS-16 and have had in the past Ampex MM200 2-inch 16. What are your thoughts on 2-inch versus 1-inch 16 tape sonically?
I mean, well, the wider the tape, the better. I had 1-inch. It's kind of funny, like looking back on it, my 1-inch 16 track compared to professional studios, people kind of look down on it. Because, studios were like, $1 million facilities and I had one in my basement. But my 1-inch 16 track analog machine cost me $12,000 back in the 80s. And that was just the tape machine and the remote control. It didn't even include any of the wiring or anything else. And then I pulled it out. I had it in storage and I put it back up here. And actually, I'm going to have somebody come out and work on it because I want to do a session on it. It needs a little work. But I'm looking at it now. I'm like, man, that's a real solid piece of engineering. But yes, basically speaking, the quality of a 2-inch analog machine is going to probably be better than a 1-inch because it's just got more space. There's more tape that it can record onto. The only 2-inch machines I ever worked on some Studers at the Old Tree Sound, and then there was another studio I worked at that I think he had it might have been a Sony or something like that. But to be honest with you, I most of my experience was just on half-inch 8-track and 1-inch 16 track at 30 IPS.
Oh, here's a question. Hey, when you have a client that you've been working with and you haven't heard from them in like 3 months, when do you stop working with them?
You mean like they owe you money? Or they didn't finish the session? I mean, like I work with people who tour. So we're in the studio and we're best friends and it's going on. And then I can't get them on the phone for 6 months to a year or whatever. I text them and I call them and I used to get really upset about it. But then it comes back to putting myself in somebody else's shoes. When you're touring, it's just constant work. And it's like, if I find out one of my clients on the road and I text them, I don't hear from them, it's like, I'm going to give them a couple weeks. No big deal. But as far as somebody just not responding, it's like, who knows what's going on in their life? I don't know. If they owe me money, they're going to hear from me for sure. But if they just kind of disappear, who knows? Who knows? Things go on in people's lives. And I've had times where people just disappear. Here's a funny story. I was working with a rapper named Magic out of, I think, New Orleans. And Magic was just wonderful. One of the nicest, funniest guys in the world. And we'd been working pretty steadily. He'd come up and work on stuff, and he had actually had a couple singles that did well. I Smoke, I Drank, and some other things. And there's this one point where he just disappeared. I could not get him on the phone. I'm like, what happened? What happened? And nobody knew. And I don't know. After about like 6 or 7 months, he calls me up. And he's just talking like nothing happened. I'm like, dude, where have you been? And he said, I had to sit down for a while. I was like, what do you mean? And I didn't realize that where he comes from, sit down means like you're in jail. And what had happened is he had gotten in trouble for, it was something about driving down the road with his wife in his van, and he was laying down in the chair. So somebody only saw his wife, and somebody in another car started like hooting and hollering to his wife, and he got mad and had his wife pull up next car and like was punching the car as they're driving. I don't know. Magic was kind of nuts. And there was some sort of thing like, some small charge, but he was supposed to go to court and he forgot and didn't go. So one day he's at home and the sheriff shows up because he didn't go to court and he got hauled into jail. But the funny thing is for him, going to jail for a few months was just like, I just had to sit down for a while. I was like, oh God. So you never know what's going on in people's lives. So, but if they owe you money, I'd be all over their ass. That's all I'm going to say.
Elijah was asking, what do you think is better for rock recording, a home studio or going to a studio and paying for time? I'm in a small area where it's not really known for rock recording, but I want to release an album as quick as possible. What's better?
Man. All right. This does not apply to all studios. I've always mostly worked in my own home studio. I've gone to some big studios that were amazing and just didn't really get what I wanted. There's ups and downs to that. If there's nobody in your area that knows how to record a band, then you're going to have a problem. You're going to need to go somewhere where they know what they're doing. But on the other hand, I've gone to places and they had all this gear. We had to pay extra money, but in the end, we might have been better off taking 4 times as long at a home studio and just trying to figure out how to make it sound good so that we could like focus on the songwriting and stuff like that. I can't say what would be better. I will say this. I had this one experience with my home studio. So I've got 2 studios. I mostly work here. One's in another house that I go to sometimes, but it's got a fairly big drum room, but it's nothing fancy. It's got some mic pre's and all that, but I can get a pretty good drum sound there. And I was working with a band. I was co-producing. The band had raised $40,000 to do an album. And I was like, oh, that's good. But the other producer insisted we go to Nashville and spend a ton of money at Blackbird, like in their D room, which is one of the best studios in the world. So I was like, well, okay, cool. So we did it, and we spent a lot of money, and the guitar player had this old beat-up orange amp, but because we were there, we mic'd up all these super expensive amps, and spent a whole day just doing that and all this other stuff. But in the end, the best-sounding amp was this guy's beat-up orange amp with just a 57 on it, and in the end, the kind of sound that they wanted, there was no reason to go to the studio. I didn't really know much about the band. It's a long story. Had I known better, I probably would have said something, but they kind of wanted something that was kind of raw. And it's like, oh, we could have just done that at my studio because I can actually make really slick sounding drums there. But, I would say this, though, as far as a band is concerned, the number one thing you got to do is can you record everybody at the same time? Like you want everybody playing at the same time, even if you just go back. Even if you do that and then go back and only keep the drums and redo the guitars or whatever, you want to have that vibe going on at the same time. So the number one thing is like, is there room? Is there an interface where you can at least get 16 inputs on it? That should be enough to do a small band. And then a good headphone mix. That's another thing, too. I don't care what studio you go to, you better make sure they've got a great headphone system and try it out. Because I've gone into studios and like, oh, we got this so-and-so system, but it never really works right. So the main thing is, can everybody record at the same time? And do you have a good headphone mix? If you can conquer that, you could do it in a farmhouse. You could do it in a bedroom. Because I've gotten some recordings, and I've done recordings in the weirdest places. But because I covered those bases, I just made sure people could hear themselves and we had enough inputs. We did a great recording because at the end of the day, it's just more about vibe. That's the main thing.
Let's see. We had over on Instagram, does the converter of audio interface play any role in making the quality of the mix better?
Yeah. The converter and the clocking and all that. But I will tell you, like in most cases, now I'm on a nice Mac and I've got a Universal Apollo quad. I've got a Apogee Big Band Master Clock. And I have that because I'm also running a Apogee Rosetta 8-channel interface that does a light pipes 8 additional channels in and out. So I got 16. So, to me, it's like as long as you got a pretty decent interface and a pretty decent computer, like that stuff's pretty accurate these days. Like. You wouldn't want to be doing it on an M-Box or something like that. But yeah, it can make a big difference. But man, I got to tell you, like most of the equipment these days, even if I know somebody's going to argue with me about that, but dude, I've done tests. Oh my God. I've sat with people and they're talking about this word clock cable makes this sound different. I'm like, y'all are hallucinating. Come on, man. Come on. And also the other thing too is like, yeah, like get the best converter you can afford and all that. But at the end of the day, it kind of comes down to emotion. Like, I will kill somebody else's mix. They might, like, even if they have way better converters and all that, because I understand things about music. Yeah, you can get a better sound, but are you capturing the emotion? Are you focusing on the emotion and stuff? But I wouldn't stress on that too much unless you got a lot of money to because the difference between an average, you got an average and a good converter, and then the next step up, moving to these super expensive ones, is thousands of dollars, but the difference is going to be like that much. It's a little better, but...
Kind of a follow-up to the studio question. Paul asked, have you ever tracked drums in a small space with good results?
Yes, actually. So at my other studio, I've got a room with 12-foot ceilings. It's like 12 by 15 or 16 by 22 or something like that. And then here, this is in where I live now, and I've got a room upstairs, and I'll be showing this on other live streams and other videos. I've got a big living room with really high ceilings. It's like really big. I got 16 mic lines run up there. So I've always been this thing like, oh, I want to record drums in a big room, or like at Tree Sound back in the cave, which is basically like a warehouse. But then there's a room right out here that's an old garage. It's like a single car garage, and I closed it in, and it was mainly for like just to maybe do interviews and just a place for people to hang out and all that. And there's been a couple times I needed to do drums, but I didn't really want to get it up in the living room because the living room is a mess. And it was kind of a garage band sound, so I stuck the drums in there, and it's just a small garage, a single-car garage, and dude, it sounds great. It's like low ceilings, and I hadn't done that in years. Now, I do have there's a corner where I put the drums, and I've got thick padding in there because I thought I would do interviews in there, so I wanted to make sure there was a dead corner. So the drums are like kind of in this corner, so if you're going to be in a small room, make sure you got a lot of deadening behind the drummer because the mics are going to be pointing in that direction. And then you can put some mics pointing out in the room, and it'll be a short room sound, but you can always like compress them. Now, the cool thing for me is that the other garage, the other single car garage next to it, there's just a door there. So if I crack the door and take a car out and stick a couple mics in there, and now I've got a live echo chamber in there. So it's amazing. But I've been kind of getting into the small room drum sound. It's actually, I'm kind of falling in love with it again. The main thing is just to make sure that behind the drummer, you got a lot of thick padding. Main thing.
Which kind of, somebody says, I want to get a tighter, direct, punchy sound in the room, but also a vibey room sound. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Kind of comes back to the same thing. It's kind of like, I guess it ties into the live end, dead end concept of design, which was something that people had, I think mostly, I guess they did it in sound rooms and control rooms. With me, even if I'm in a big room and I want a big drum sound, I make sure to put some gobos, which, are these like panels that you put around something to stop the sound. I make sure that they're really thick, and I try to get them around behind the drummer and kind of coming out to the side a little bit so that the mics are pointing towards that dead area, and try to get them as high as possible. And the other thing is, you can do this thing where with your kick drum is you put your mic in front of you have your mic going in the kick drum, and maybe you got a mic out in front of the kick drum, but you build a tunnel in front of the kick drum. You can actually buy one of these. And what you do is you don't want to put too much weight on the kick drum because it'll kind of like deaden the kick drum some. But if you just get a bunch of packing blankets and you get some smaller mic stands, or you can build it out of cushions or whatever, you want to build a tunnel out from the kick drum and then close off the end, but leave some space so there's some air for the room to move. Like I would make that tunnel like this long, right? And then that does two things. One is it keeps the sound of the kick drum from reverberating in the room too much, but it also, which keeps it from getting in the other mics, but it kind of tightens up the kick sound. I hadn't done this in a long time, but that is a huge thing. So then you can get a tighter kick drum sound. You also don't have that kick drum too much in the room mic, because really you want the room mics more for your like snare and toms. So you can do that. So between those two things, having a dead area behind and slightly out to the side of the drummer, like a lot of padding, and leave the rest of the room live, you should be able to control. You should be able to have some tight sounds, but have the room mics pointing away from the drums at another wall, and you should be able to blend both and get the best of both worlds.
Okay, so I'm going to point out before I move on that we've passed an hour.
Yeah.
I don't know, and I think it's pretty clear we're not going to get to all of y'all's questions today. I think as things get more active here, there's just no way we're going to be able to keep up. I don't know. Do you want me to go through a few more, Billy?
Well, actually, I was looking at something. Yeti here on YouTube. He discovered my channel. Thanks so much. You've been working completely in the box and want to move more hardware now. Music is just a hobby for me, by the way. Yeah, I think that's great. I feel like, and that's kind of what I was talking about on one of my recent videos and what I'm talking about in this current video about how do you break out, because when you're in the box, yeah, there's a lot of choices, but, the mic pre-modeling software that you have or plugin you have is the same one everybody else has, and there's a kind of a ubiquitousness to the sounds. So I'm working on a video to break that up, but I'm also talking a lot about getting out of the box. So yeah, maybe get some hardware. I'm not sure exactly what you're trying to do, but probably the first thing I would do is maybe just get a decent mic pre. There's different ones out there. Get a mic pre with some EQ on it. You don't want, like, at your level, if you're starting out, get a mic pre that hopefully has some EQ, maybe even a compressor on it, so you can kind of mess with it a little bit, because you want to be able to turn some knobs. And also creating sample libraries. I don't know if you were here earlier during the stream. I showed some clips for the video I'm working on, because a big part of the video is where I'm creating custom samples. So I would say go out and buy yourself like a Shure SM57, because in the video I'm just using one of these. This is like, what, $110, $100? And I actually do a bunch of samples using this or using, I put it away. It's a cheap mic that comes from the 70s that my dad had on his stereo, and I use that for samples too. It's just a little cheap stereo mic that with a eighth inch jack on it, and you can use almost anything to make samples. Rubber trash cans, plates. I use in the video I'm using like a skillet, cardboard boxes, chains, whatever. Record them. Drop them into your rig, cut them up, put weird effects on them, and then save them as a file, and then put them in your sample player, and you got your own sounds. And that's one thing you can do. But having a mic pre and a mic, like I said, just even something like that, or like this is another good one for that sort of thing. This is a Sennheiser 609. Just get yourself a couple mics and start making your own samples.
I guess we'll close with a couple of questions that are less gear related. One was, what genre is your favorite to mix, and what do you enjoy listening to most when you're doing your job?
Well, let me start off with my least favorite genre to mix, and that would be bluegrass. Even though I love the music, it's so hard to mix well. But besides that, I like to mix what is good. It could be heavy metal, it could be rock, it could be pop. To me, it's like if the song's good, if the engineering was good, and, the producers and the engineers, they in the band had a common vision and it all works. And, sometimes solving problems is fun when things are messed up. I don't know, sometimes terrible recordings are fun too, because it's like, oh, I got to figure this out. And then I'm like, oh, I just figured something out. I don't know, man. I can't really say I have a favorite. It kind of comes down to like something that's interesting. I hate getting run-of-the-mill stuff. I want something that's kind of different. And like I said, sometimes even if there's like something wrong with the recording, if it's interesting and sometimes the reason something is wrong, like it's recorded badly, is because they were going for something and they didn't know how to do it and it kind of got messed up, but I see what they're going for and I can maybe salvage the situation. But they were reaching for something. They weren't playing it safe. So to me, a lot of it has to do with is there something unique and different about it, but it could be almost any genre.
And then, where'd it go? Alex was saying, recently a friend of mine got to ask one question of Paul McCartney, and I'll ask it of you. What do you attribute your success to?
I'm too stupid to quit. I don't know. I'm also really, I think it's a bunch of things. I think that I'm terrified of getting a job ever. I had a job once. I worked at CNN for about 3 months, way back in the day on their website. That was terrifying. I quit. It was just a part-time job. But in all seriousness, it's because I'm stubborn and I'm determined. And I also finish things. That's another thing. I finish things. Well, it's a couple of things I haven't finished and they're still haunting me. But I make sure to get things done. I'm also obsessive about my work. I come from a long line of carpenters. So I spent years before I made money in the music business as a handyman. I would build people some bookcases or a cabinet. I might remodel their basement. I might paint their house. I know how to do all that stuff. And that's in my blood. That's from my family. And a craftsman constantly is perfecting his talent and his skill. And I've applied that to my music. And I'm a bit obsessive about that. I also, I don't know, I'm just really determined. And I also set my life up in a way where I was able to keep going through the hard times because, as I said earlier in the stream, because I went over like things that people need to do to prepare for their career, I always made sure to live cheaply. I've never bought a new car. I shop at Goodwill, and this was something I've done even when I was having hit records and making a lot of money. I made sure to live cheaply so when the hard times come, I didn't have to quit. Some of my friends that were, I think, way better engineers and mixers than me and had way more experience, they had to quit when the music business went downhill or there were tough times because they bought the bigger house and they bought a lot of gear, assuming they're going to keep making that money. And then when it didn't come in, they had to get out. So that's a big part of it as well. But a lot of it is I'm just stubborn.
All right. I see Raul has tried really hard to type this question up coherently, so we'll do it. Recently made a recording in OBS Studio with audio and 4 separate cameras. And every time I change scenes during the recording, I get a clipping sound. Do you have any ideas what might be causing this?
Oh, that is, okay, so we're going to talk a little OBS stuff here, and that is the software I'm using to stream. I normally have a lot of cameras running, but because of some videos, they aren't hooked up. So, Raul, I was trying to figure out the crossfading between scenes. Like if I change, Harper, let's just switch scenes here real quick. Okay, you see that's a fast crossfade, but go to like the starting screen or something. Now that was a slow fade, but you know what? I think the sound just cuts off. So in OBS, there's a way I can control the crossfade. And I've been assuming this whole freaking time that it was crossfading the music, but if I'm wrong, did that sound just suddenly cut off, people? I'm just kind of curious. I never noticed this till like a week ago, and I'm like, oh, the crossfade doesn't do the music. And I've actually been looking into this. So if you've got a sound that's carrying across a scene, actually, hey, I'm actually curious about that. Hey, Harper, I'm just gonna go, I'm gonna hold a note, and I want you to switch like to Kit's camera or something like that. I want to see if it cuts off my sound. Okay, this is a little test, Raul. Okay, you ready? Here we go. Okay, did it? Oh, sorry. I'm not done. Okay, let's do all 4 cameras. Here we go. God, if somebody came on that stream during that time, like, what the hell is he doing? Okay, y'all tell me, did it cut the sound when I was going, between cameras?
Fragile says it's consistent.
Oh.
Reg says it didn't cut off.
Well, that's interesting. Maybe it has to do with maybe it does have to do with the crossfade because, so here's the question. When we went to the clip where it was showing some music and it came back to me, did it cut the music off?
Nope, apparently.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, then I don't know, because I tested it and it seemed like it was cutting the sound off. So, Raul, I don't know what to tell you, but I will say it. You might want to look into, hold on, let me look it up here in OBS. It's something called tools. It's called, it's your transitions, scene transitions. So you got to check your scene transitions. I thought that maybe that is affecting the audio. That's the only thing I can suggest. But good question, because I've actually had that happen. So if you figure it out, please let me know.
All right. I'm going to throw this out there because it kind of goes right into, talking about how you're going to have a new video coming out. But the question is, how long on average does it take you to make a video?
All right. So if you go on my YouTube channel, there's one called... was it all worth it, or was it a waste of time? Or was it all worth it, or was it a waste of time, or something like that? And I put it out.
I'll put up a link.
Yeah, put up a link to this video. It's one of my favorite videos, and it was about getting this console in here. Let's go to the overhead shot. It's about this console and the desk. It's kind of this whole long story. And it's gotten like, I don't know, like how many views? 60,000 views or something like that. It's one of my better videos view-wise. And it's like 22 minutes long. It's a great video. And I kind of went overboard with it. I got custom music, and I even had this whole ASMR little thing that happens in it. It took me 2 weeks to make that freaking video. Why? Because I'm insane, because I filmed every aspect of putting this mixer in here and redoing the control room, and I just kept filming, and when I was done I had over 200 gigabytes of footage, and I was like, oh my God, but I'm stubborn, so I did it anyway. It took me 2 weeks to get the video done, and I thought, I'm gonna get 200 views, but I don't care. I'm gonna get 200 views, but I'm gonna do what I want. I'm gonna do the video I want to make, and people liked it. That took me 2 weeks to do. Now, the other video I put out recently, the one that's done more than anything, called The Real Reason Why Today's Music is Starting to Sound the Same, that took me 2 days. Because I did all the talking part in one day. Then I did some editing. And I think I got some little clips I show in there and all that. So that took like 2 days. And then the video I'm working on right now that I showed some clips of earlier, about, how to get out of the box and be more unique and all that, that's probably going to take me, in the end, 5 days, because I'm, again, doing too much. So, yeah, it's anywhere from 2 days to forever. Depends on the kind of video. Usually, all my videos take way too long to make, and everybody's trying to tell me, like, you should speed it up, and just do this, and just talk. It's like, man, that's fine, I can talk, but I know what I want to do. I like having produced videos, so yeah, I'll probably be continuing to do these really hard to do videos anyway, yeah, so it's whatever, man. There was something up here I wanted
there's more questions, but yeah. I mean, we're already at,
well, let's go a little bit longer, and I want,
past time.
I want to answer questions, especially on YouTube, because it's just been, I've gotten so many new subscribers, and everybody's been so supportive, and it's just been amazing. So I want to kind of like just make sure that I'm getting everybody as much as possible. So is there, let's do two more questions, and then
Steve, 2 days is, when Billy talks about a day's worth of work.
Oh yeah,
we're easily talking 12 hours.
Well, I worked 14 yesterday.
Yeah, I was going to say,
no, maybe I might have
12.
gone 15. I'm kind of bonkers like that. I like working hard if it's my thing and I enjoy it. But yeah, I'll typically work 12 to 14 hours a day. Any
That's
more?
right, Saxon 7. Billy's gonna Billy.
Billy's gonna Billy. I can't help it. I am who I am. I am what I am. And I'm not, everybody who's always trying to tell me you got to work quicker, or you don't always have to do your best job. It's like, unfortunately, I always have to do my best job. It just is, it's how I am. I'm incapable of not trying to do my best job. But that makes me like turn down certain work, because I'm not going to want to do my best job, so I don't do it. Let's see.
Yeah. Oh, Saxon 7 says, how long did the Life in the Northern Town video take to make?
Oh.
I don't remember. That was a
That
while,
was
though.
maybe...
Oh,
well, you know, that was earlier in the stream. I think it took 3 to 4 days. And I remember thinking, oh, my God, that took forever. Partially the reason...
Earlier in your channel, you mean, not the stream.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Early in my channel when I made that video. And that is a good video. The reason that one took a long time is I was trying to figure out how to play the music back, talk at the same time, how to route it, you know, and how to record it. And back then I was doing this thing where I was like recording the camera and the audio, the music, and my microphone on separate and having to drop them into DaVinci, which I edit my video on, and lining them all up. And it was like that alone. The workflow was terrible. I've kind of synthesized it down where I use OBS to make my videos now, so I can actually film 2 cameras at the same time. So I can actually capture my screen and me talking at the same time, and I can separate my microphone and the music. But it took me forever to figure out how to do that, and it's still a couple things a little funky on it, like sometimes the audio and the picture, but it's I got to nudge something 3 frames. But the reason some of those earlier videos took a long time was just because technically I was like, God, how do I even do all this? So yeah, that was like 3 or 4 days.
And I'm about to pop the link up for that one.
Thanks, Yeti. I really appreciate it. And once again, I would just like to say thanks to everybody on my YouTube channel and on the stream for just being involved. And the comments have been so amazing. I can't even begin to tell you. I've been doing this for 4 years, and it took me 4 years to get to 9,999 subscribers. And then we're a little over a week now, and I'm at 22,000 subscribers. And it's just amazing. It's amazing. And the support has been amazing. And getting the feedback is just like, I can't even tell you. There have been some dark times. There have been some dark times because it's you know, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. But it's nice to actually get the views and get the support. And also the other thing that's really cool is like the comments are like, wow, some of these people are really smart. I need to do some studying. I got to like make sure I'm explaining things. But also I'm getting other ideas for videos. Like sometimes somebody will ask a question, they'll say something like, oh, I didn't think about that. Like they'll catch something I didn't cover. Or sometimes people tell me I'm wrong. And I'm like, oh, damn, they're right. I didn't, you know. So to me, that's like, that is wonderful. Like to get that feedback. I can't even, Crystal, you tell them.
I mean, it's been so inspiring and affirming because, you know, when you are slogging at something, even if you believe in yourself and you keep hitting it and it's just not happening and you keep having to have these moments of like self-reflection and trying to tweak everything. And when something finally happens, to get that feedback, not just the, you know, the affirmation that things start doing better, but to get that feedback from people about, oh, this has helped me, or, oh, this is so good, or I really enjoy this. That feedback is incredible.
Yeah. And the other thing too, that's kind of interesting, I've gotten platinum records, I've gotten gold records, I won a Grammy. But the funny thing is that I've gotten more support and feedback and affirmation from my YouTube channel than I got from getting a Grammy. You know, the Grammy's kind of cool, like in the industry, and people know about it. But it's cool. It's a statue. But you know, it's when I was working on, because I had years where I was working on stuff that was constantly on the Billboard charts, and you know, a lot of platinum and gold records, even though I don't have all of them here because they wanted me to pay for them. I was like, no, you sell me the damn plaque. I'm not paying for my own plaque. But it's like, but people don't know who you are. You're in some studio and, you know, it's like you're there and that's, you know, and you're kind of like separated from the rest of the world. But the YouTube channel and a lot of times on Instagram, like getting actual feedback, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Like that's the thing for me that's just so awesome. It's like, oh, people are paying attention and they care. So just again, thank you so much for watching the videos and commenting, coming on the stream and subscribing. There's so much more to come. I do need to get the views up because I need to make some money doing this. The more money I can make, the more videos I can make, but I got a lot of plans. Some of it's going to surprise you. Some of it's going to be me talking about musical issues. There's going to be more studio videos. I am working on my album. There's going to be quite a few videos about working on the album, but songwriting,
it won't be distributed
engineering.
By TuneCore, though.
I'm not going to talk about TuneCore right now. mad at TuneCore. But there's so much more to come. So we're just kind of getting started here, folks. But thanks so much for the support and being involved. See another question here on YouTube, and eventually I have to get off and actually work on the video. But let's see. Dim, oh my God, my eyesight's so bad. What was it? Say Dim Dukas on YouTube.
Dimmy Duka, or maybe? I'm not sure.
My eyesight's terrible. Could you do a video about the bare minimum of hardware you'd get if you need to have only a few things in your studio if you had to start over, like which preamp, compressors?
And mics.
And mics. That's kind of a good idea. That's a good idea. What is the bare... I guess the question would be the bare minimum for what, though? Are you talking about just to record some vocals or like to do a band? What would be the bare minimum for a band? Actually,
Fragile suggests get a decent audio interface for number one.
You know, hey, can you take a note down on that?
Sure.
I like that one. Yeah, a bare minimum setup. You know what? Maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll do a video. Bare minimum
thanks,
setups.
preeminent game.
Oh, thanks so much. Thank you so much. Oh, and also preeminent game. Keep an eye on. I've got a video coming out soon that is kind of responding to the video I made about music sounding the same and working in the box. There'll be more production stuff in there. But yeah, so Dimmy, maybe I'll do a video and it shows 3 different setups or something like that. One for like basic setup for just a vocal, and then maybe a band, and then maybe acoustic instruments or something like that. That might be a cool thing to do. It's like, what is the bare minimum that you would need? Actually, that's a great idea. Thanks. Like I said, y'all give me the ideas for the videos.
Yeah, that's
Thanks.
funny because this came right out of you saying that you get good ideas for videos from all the comments.
Yeah. Yes, Saxon 7, Grammy is clout, but I lost work from getting a Grammy. You think, oh, you're going to get a Grammy, you're going to get all this work. It might have been different if I was still doing more major label stuff. I just got sick of doing major label stuff, and working with superstars is kind of a pain in the ass. But what happened was when I got the Grammy is people are like, oh, he's got a Grammy. He'd never work with me now. So people quit calling, and I'd like, hey, you can still hire me. Yeah. And funny thing, it's kind of happening with my YouTube channel now that I'm getting a lot of views and attention. People are like, well, he's too busy doing videos to do work. I'm like, I could use some work right now. I'm not, contrary to popular belief, I am not rich, at least financially. I'm rich in love and inspiration and people, but not with dollars. Oh yeah. So, oh my God, Crystal, how do I say Tuanaku metal? Have I tried vertical lives on YouTube? I think I'm streaming in the regular live stream on YouTube, and I'm thinking about, I want to see if I can do it simultaneously, because right now I'm streaming on Instagram, so I'm actually outputting vertical video to Instagram at this moment. I just got to see if I can run it over to vertical live in YouTube at the same time, maybe next week. And then I'm thinking about seeing if I can stream to Facebook. So I'll be Twitch, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and YouTube vertical. So that I wonder if I can stream the 5 platforms at the same time. Kit, can you keep up with comments and all that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was reading something. I'm only half listening to what you're actually saying.
So Kit over here, besides bringing the brain behind the operation and making sure there's enough milk and cereal here and taking care of all the finances and keep me from getting depressed, she also, during these live streams, is over there watching the comments on all 3 platforms that I'm on and trying to keep up with them. So since things have started to been taking off, she's like struggling.
We're simul streaming on Twitch, YouTube, and Instagram. So, like I said, sorry if I miss y'all. I'm trying.
Thanks, Studio Dude. Studio Dude's been here from the beginning, bro. Studio Dude was watching some of my 8-hour long live streams. And just for anybody who doesn't know, I usually keep these to an hour or so. I was, a year or so ago, I was doing like these 7 and 8 hour long live streams where we'd just be here in the studio working forever. I may eventually get back to that. It just was taking a lot of time. And there are some other reasons why I quit doing it. I do want to get back to doing studio sessions live. there's just a lot going on right now. It is going to come. It is going to come. But Studio Dude, you were there from the beginning. I so much appreciate you hanging out and sticking with me this whole time. Let's see. Somebody was asking what a mic preamp does. It powers the microphone. I am not technically exact. You know, like I couldn't give you like voltage and stuff like that, but it basically is. A microphone needs to be amplified for whatever reason. I guess there's stuff that I don't think you can put it in the mic. So yeah, a mic preamp would be kind of like with you have an electric guitar, you got to go into an amplifier. That's the quickest way to say it. Like if you got an electric guitar, you got to have an amplifier. If you got a microphone, you got to have a microphone amplifier. That's basically the quick question for that. Thanks so much. Yeah.
Sorry, Saxon 7, we are not going to be streaming on MySpace.
MySpace. Oh my God. Well, anyway, I do have to get back to work on my next video. So I think I'm going to sign off. I just want to say thanks to everybody. Oh, hold on. There's another question here. I'm terrible. Squirrel. What? Question?
Somebody earlier was asking if you have ADHD. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Rancid rodent. What would you consider to be your production signature? I think I would pride myself in that I kind of don't have one. Like, I can do different things in different genres. I think it's more about the thoroughness of things. There's going to be clarity for sure. It's going to be clear and you can hear things, and it's going to have good low end. Got to have the low end in there, man. That's kind of why I got into rap music in the 90s. I got so sick of rock and roll in the 90s. They're just a bunch of goddamn babies, and they didn't want I just want my records to be huge. So yeah, I guess my signature should be they sound great low end, and they're punchy and wide. I just like big sounds. I'm not really into that whole lo-fi thing. I just wanted to make big records. So I guess that would be it. But I don't think there's like a particular sound besides that. Can I recommend Elisa's hardware? Oh, yeah. So he's talking about, hey, let's go to, yeah, I mean, yeah, so much for getting the stream finished. Oh, yeah, he's probably talking about, oh, this thing's about to die. So he's talking about one of my videos, and I was talking about this. That is an Alesis D4 sound module, and it's in one of my videos, and it's actually got great sounds on it. I would, if you can get hold of one, although I think I've got all the sounds sampled somewhere, or at least most of them. That's a good one. Oh, you know what else is good, Alesis-wise? If you wanna break out of the box, is this. So that is oh my God,
Billy. Y'all can't see, but
I just spilled water. Luckily, not on anything important.
Except for your guitar.
Hold on.
Not anything important, You're gonna use your shirt.
Here on Billy Hume, you see it all. Hold on. Got a traveler. If we're gonna jump, we're gonna shut. This is what I spilled. Oh.
It's dark. You can't really see what you're doing. It's just black.
All right. I spilled the water. It all happens live here on Billy Hume. Freaking out with Billy Hume.
Hey, it's better than cutting your forehead.
What was the question? I already forgot.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what you were answering.
I probably need to end this stream before... oh, yeah. It was... I will finish this. So I was showing, before I spilled that cup of water... that is a Alesis Wedge digital reverb. And I actually use it. I think it sounds great. There's a room on there called Cedar Room, and I use it on vocals a lot, and I use that. I think it sounds better than a lot of the plugins. I actually have a video where I compare my old outboard reverbs, even some of these cheap Alesis ones that everybody thought was a joke back in the day. I made a video and compared them to modern plugins, and I got to tell you, some of these cheap outboard digital reverbs from 5 years ago still sound better than the plugins. So go check that video out. I think she's going to put a link up of that.
Oh, sorry. What video? I was typing.
I compared all my reverbs to the plugins or something like that.
Yeah, I remember.
Check that one out. It's actually illuminating. It's like, oh man, some of those sound great.
Thank you so much, Tiwanaku Metal.
Paper Towel Fund.
Yeah,
so
we
much.
need it.
Yeah. Hey, in my old studio, there was this part next to me where I was always spilling milkshakes at the Zone, my other studio. There's this
Why did you have milkshakes all the time?
I was into milkshakes for a while, and I would keep knocking them over. So there's this one spot where I kept dropping vanilla milkshakes on the floor, but I'd be in the middle of a session, so I just kind of wipe it up, you know. Over the years, there's probably been like 20 milkshakes spilled on that spot. That studio's a little worn down. At least I didn't spill coffee with milk and sugar on it on my patch bay like I did last year. Remember that?
That was an adventure.
Yeah, I literally dumped a cup of coffee on my patch bay and some gear.
That was some
frantic
dismantling and cleaning right there.
Anyway, so thanks for the tip there, and I do need to work on a video here.
Sorry,
so,
I'm really going and finding that link for you. It's not in my document.
Oh, for the video?
Yeah, it shouldn't
video?
be too long. I compared my... here, I know what.
Just go to my YouTube channel.
I am on your YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's a white thumbnail. And
there it is. I got it. I had to go to your playlist to find it.
Yeah, she's going to put up this video here. And thank you so much. And put up this link to this video where I'm comparing the reverbs and the plugins. While she's doing that, let's see if there's any last minute questions before I go off. Yeah, studio dude. It's like, isn't it funny how people made fun of Alesis back in the days? See, most of my friends had big studios. It's like back in the day, my friends had like, $1 million studios. Like literally, they had SSLs and Studer machines and all that. And I'm the guy in the basement with some Alesis ADATs and some Alesis reverbs. And I was kind of embarrassed. But the funny thing is like I made great records. I could give those people a run for their money all day long. Because I'm just obsessive. And the weird thing is like a lot of times, it's not that my stuff sounded better than theirs. It's just that it was cooler because I was just doing neat stuff. Like theirs might be a little more pristine, but at the end of the day, I was just doing cool stuff. Yeah, coffee, good, spilling bad. So, yeah, she's posting up that link.
I did. Yeah, there it is.
Yep. So everybody, thanks again so much. I'm going to have to end the stream because I got to get working on this video if it's ever going to get out. And just thanks everybody so much. I will be back next Wednesday. And hopefully I'll be a little bit more organized. This one was kind of crazy because the power went out this morning for 2 hours because a tree...
Yeah, if y'all were on Discord, you may have seen me make note. Yeah, a couple hours before the stream, the power goes out because it's gorgeous up here today, but it was really windy. A tree came down. Billy's out there with a chainsaw.
Yeah, I had to pull a chainsaw out this morning and cut a tree that was across my neighbor's driveway. They're old and they wouldn't be able to get out, so I had to go cut this tree get it off the driveway, and then the power went out, and yeah, it's been kind of a crazy morning. So anyway, everybody, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. I will be back next Wednesday. In the meantime, y'all be creative, be good to each other, and be unique. Thank you. take 2, take 3, take 4, take 5, take whatever.